the biggest hit TV-wise of the year, the streaming show Wednesday. We're finally going to review that, as well as some other pretty high-profile shows. Fleishman Is In Trouble, Welcome to Chippendales, the Pitch Perfect spin-off Bumper in Berlin. We've also got the Golden Globe announcements to talk about, so let's talk TV. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to TV News and Reviews for the week. We've got 6 new shows to discuss. I've already mentioned 4 of them up top, including the very, very popular Wednesday, breaking all kinds of records for an English language show over on Netflix. But we also have 2 others I didn't mention, Leopard Skin on Peacock and Echo 3 on Apple TV+. Both more in the dramatic type vein, mystery kind of elements there. But before we do that, we have 2 actually awards to talk about the nominations for. Golden Globes were just announced with their nominations. George and Mayan Lopez were supposed to announce them. George has COVID currently, so they had a substitute come in for him. But and then the other ones is the Critics' Choice Awards, which I know are not as high profile and exciting, but there's some interesting choices there that I want to go over. In fact, let's talk about them first, because I feel like Golden Globes is kind of like the big show for TV other than the Emmys. So we'll sort of save that for a minute. But there are certainly some crossover shows. In fact, a lot of crossover shows between both of these. But the Critics' Choice actually has more nominations overall. So there's a few in there that I think are a little bit unexpected. So we'll start with the drama stuff. Best Drama Series, Andor, which I agree is, it's one of the best Star Wars things we've seen in a long time. Bad Sisters on Apple TV+, which is a surprise. I don't think this was really getting a lot of buzz. It did get renewed for a second season. I reviewed it favorably, but nobody really talking about it. Better Call Saul, The Crown, Euphoria, The Good Fight, House of the Dragon, Severance, and Yellowstone. So that's all the Best Drama Series. And then for Best Actor, Jeff Bridges in The Old Man, Sterling K. Brown for the final season of This Is Us, Diego Luna for Andor, Bob Odenkirk for Saul, Adam Scott for Severance, and Anthony Starr for The Boys. Best Actress in a Drama, Christine Baranski for The Good Fight, Sharon Hogan, the star of Bad Sisters, Laura Linney for Ozark, Mandy Moore for This Is Us, Kelly Riley, Yellowstone, and of course Zendaya. You have to have her in there for Euphoria. For supporting, Andre Braugher for The Good Fight in Actors, Ismael Cruz Cordova for Lord of the Rings, Michael Emerson for Evil. Ooh, that's an interesting choice. Of course, I first saw him in Lost. Giancarlo Esposito for Better Call Saul, John Lithgow for The Old Man, and Matt Smith, House of the Dragon. And then for supporting actress, Millie Alcock for House of the Dragon, don't know who that is. Carol Burnett, Better Call Saul, Jennifer Coolidge for The White Lotus, Julia Garner for Ozark, Audra McDonald for The Good Fight, I just saw her on Broadway, and Rhea Seehorn in Better Call Saul. So, a lot of, I think, the usuals that we expect, but some newcomers, a lot of love for House of the Dragon, which certainly makes sense, and a little bit of love for The Lord of the Rings, and then The Old Man getting some acting nods. So interesting. All right, over to comedy. Again, most of these are going to be pretty obvious, but there's a couple in here that are great and welcome newcomers. Abbott Elementary, Barry the Bear, loved that. Better Things for what is, I think, the last season. Ghosts, Hacks, Reboot, which I gave an A to. I love that show on Hulu. And then Reservation Dogs. Best Actor in a Comedy Series, Matt Beery for What We Do in the Shadows, Bill Hader for Barry, Keegan-Michael Key for Reboot, Steve Martin, Only Murders in the Building, not Martin Short, just Steve Martin, Jeremy Allen White for The Bear, and Defero Wu Ati for Reservation Dogs. Best Actress Comedy, Christina Applegate, Dead to Me, that makes sense. Quinta Brunson for Abbott, Kaylee Cuoco, The Flight Attendant, Bernice Ellis Goldsberry for Girls Five Eva, Devery Jacobs for Reservation Dogs, and Jean Smart for Hacks. I gotta say, even though I love Reservation Dogs, I don't know who is who, so when they say these actors' names, I don't necessarily know exactly what character, but Best Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series, Brandon Scott Jones for Ghosts, Leslie Jordan for Call Me Kat. Obviously, that is a posthumous nomination that, let's be a little bit real. I don't think he would have gotten otherwise. And if I remember correctly, he might be nominated for a Globe as well for that role. Look, I love Leslie Jordan, but let's not get carried away. Network TV for the most part is not nominated except for a few shows, Ghosts, This Is Us, and Abbott Elementary. And Call Me Kat isn't really a buzzy show. It doesn't get a lot of ratings. So, I appreciate that they threw him a nomination, but I don't know. It seems a little cheap, maybe. James Marsden in Dead to Me, Chris Perfetti and Tyler James Williams for Abbott, and Henry Winkler for Barry, and Best Supporting Actress, Paulina Alexis for Reservation Dogs, Ayo Adirbi for The Bear, Marcia Gay Harden for Uncoupled, Janelle James for Abbott, Annie Potts for Young Sheldon, that's always good, and Cheryl Lee Ralph for Abbott Elementary. Best Limited Series, The Dropout, Gaslit, Girl from Plainville, The Offer, Pam and Tommy, Station 11, This Is Going to Hurt, and Under the Banner of Heaven. And then for Best Movie Made for TV. And again, we talked about this with, I guess, the Emmy Awards. I never know what's a made-for-TV movie and what's a theatrical movie. But they say Fresh from Hulu. I don't even know what that is. Prey from Hulu. That was the Predator thing. I guess, look, that Prey isn't going to be nominated for Oscars, so I guess it makes sense to put it in as a TV movie. But it was, 20th Century Fox. It would have been in theaters, I think, 4 years ago. Ray Donovan, the movie, The Survivor, 3 Months, and Weird, the Al Yankovic story. We love that. All right, so quickly we'll go through the Best Actor and Actress in a Limited Series or TV movie. Ben Foster for The Survivor, Andrew Garfield for Banner of Heaven, Samuel L. Jackson for Ptolemy Gray, Daniel Radcliffe for Al Yankovic, Sebastian Stan, Pam and Tommy, and Ben Whishaw for This Is Gonna Hurt. Best Actress, Julia Garner, Inventing Anna, Lily James, Pam and Tommy, Amber Midthunder for Prey. She was great. Julia Roberts in Gaslit, Michelle Pfeiffer in The First Lady, and Amanda Seyfried for The Dropout. And then for supporting, Murray Bartlett for Welcome to Chippendales, Domhnall Gleeson for The Patient. Oh, he was great in that. Matthew Good for The Offer, Paul Walker Hauser for Blackbird, Ray Liotta for Blackbird, and Shea Wiggum for Gaslight. And then supporting actress Claire Danes for Fleishman Is in Trouble, Dominique Fishback for Ptolemy Gray, Betty Gilpin for Gaslit, Melanie Linsky for Candy. Oh, I forgot about that one. Niecy Nash for Dahmer, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, and then Juno Temple for The Offer. And then there's some, foreign language, animated. We don't have to go into that. Best Talk Show. But that's the major nominations. So you'll hear a lot of those repeated on the Globes. But because, like I said, the Globes actually nominates a few less, at least in the Best Drama and Comedy. Maybe the acting nominations are about the same. But, we'll see about that. So on the TV side of things, there's only 5 for each. So for drama, they have Better Call Saul, The Crown, House of the Dragon, Ozark, and Severance. Musical or comedy, Abbott Elementary, The Bear, Hacks, Only Murders, and Wednesday. Okay, there. See, now we're nominating things people watch. All right, so before we get to the other nominations, I want to tell you as well, they did reveal a host for the Golden Globes. It airs January 10th on NBC, but the host is going to be Gerard Carmichael, who hosted SNL last year, had a huge stand-up special in Rothaniel, which I think he won an Emmy for. So it'll be nice to see what he does with sort of the hosting format. And then last year, remember, Golden Globes did not air on television. They gave them out to people, but, because of the hubbub of not being inclusive enough in their voting board, which contains less than 100 people to begin with, so you'd like to have some diversity, I would think. NBC said, we're not even going to air this thing until you guys straighten up. So this year they are airing it. All right, so for Best Limited or Anthology Series or TV Film, Blackbird, Dahmer, The Dropout, Pam and Tommy, and The White Lotus, Sicily. So that's, of course, the new season of that. Best Performance Drama in a TV series, Jeff Bridges, Kevin Costner for Yellowstone. I don't think he got nominated on the other one. Diego Luna, Bob Odenkirk, and Adam Scott. And then for actress, Emma Darcy for House of the Dragon, Laura Linney, Imelda Staunton for The Crown, Hilary Swank for Alaska Daily. Oh my God, a broadcast show. And of course, Zendaya for Euphoria. Musical or comedy, Donald Glover for Atlanta. I don't think he was in the other one. Bill Hader, Steve Martin, and Martin Short, and Jeremy Allen White for The Bear. Actress Quinta Brunson, Kaylee Cuoco, Selena Gomez for Only Murders. She got snubbed by the Emmys, and now Golden Globes are giving her a nod. Jenna Ortega for Wednesday, and Jean Smart for Hacks. I guess, yeah, Ted Lasso wasn't on this year, so I'm trying to think like who the big winners have been lately, and usually it's been Ted Lasso, but obviously that didn't air season 3 yet. For limited or anthology performance, Taron Egerton in Blackbird, Colin Firth for The Staircase, Andrew Garfield, Banner of Heaven, Evan Peters for Dahmer, he did not get on the other list, and Sebastian Stan for Pam and Tommy. And for actors, Jessica Chastain for George and Tammy, Julia Garner, Inventing Anna, neither of those on the other list. Lily James, Julia Roberts for Gaslit, and Amanda Seyfried for The Dropout. Supporting performance in musical, comedy, or drama. They lump all of the supportings together. So you've got, which is interesting, you've got John Lithgow for The Old Man, Jonathan Pryce for The Crown, John Turturro for Severance. We didn't hear that name before. Tyler James Williams for Abbott, and Henry Winkler for Barry. And then supporting actress, Elizabeth Debicki for The Crown, Hannah Einbender for Hacks, Julia Garner for Ozark, Janelle James and Sheryl Lee Ralph both for Abbott. And yeah, so even in the nominees over here for acting, they only do 5. So you're going to have less names, but interestingly, some different names too. For supporting for limited or anthology show or TV film, F. Murray Abraham, The White Lotus, Domhnall Gleeson for The Patient, Paul Walter Hauser for Blackbird, Richard Jenkins for Dahmer, and Seth Rogen for Pam and Tommy, a couple new names there. And then for supporting actress, Jennifer Coolidge for The White Lotus, Claire Danes, Fleishman Is in Trouble, we're going to talk about that today, Daisy Edgar Jones, Under the Banner of Heaven, Niecy Nash for Dahmer, and Aubrey Plaza for The White Lotus, Sicily. So that is all of their awards. The Critics' Choice had a few more that we didn't really talk about with the animated and the foreign language stuff, but that is all of the Golden Globe acting or TV ones. They don't do Best Director in a show. They don't do Best Writing. So that's all of them. So, I'm excited to see the Golden Globes back on television. I don't think, now that we know it's less than 100 people picking these things, I don't know that it's a straight line to the Emmys or the Oscars, but some interesting choices there, and somebody may get a Golden Globe that maybe was snubbed at the Emmys last year or what have you. So, all right, let's get into the reviews. We have to start with Wednesday. It is the biggest streaming show, at least in the English language, that there has ever been. Squid Game still tops it international wise, but Wednesday, we talked about this last week in news, it beat the Stranger Things season 4 record by about 6 million hours, I think they were categorizing them as 6 million hours for the premiere week, but the premiere week only started Wednesday, don't forget. So then we have a whole nother week after that, and it broke its own record. It's the first English language show to notch over 400 minutes or hours rather in 1 week on any kind of streaming network. So it's with Wednesday. So I knew this would be an interesting one to talk about. And this is directed by Tim Burton. At least 4 of the 8 episodes are directed by him. And really, he serves as executive producer. So it's got his hands all over the whole thing. And basically, it's about obviously the girl from the Addams Family. She was played by Christina Ricci in the 90s movies, who now is in this in a supporting role as one of the teachers at the school. But it revolves basically around her quest to solve a mystery at her school. It's a season-long mystery, which, I'll be honest, I was hoping that it wouldn't quite be like that, because I think every show is like that these days. There's a big mystery, and we take 8 episodes, 10 episodes to solve it. Or in the CW, like Riverdale or something, it takes 20 episodes to solve it. The Addams Family obviously has been, a standalone thing for a long time. It was a comic strip over 100 years ago. It was a, TV show in the 60s, very popular, but that was very episodic, of course, as most shows were in the 60s. And then, the movies in the 90s were just 2 standalone movies. So I guess I was hoping that this would be a little bit more in the vein of, all right, let's just check out this character in her day-to-day. And then they did the animated movies. I forgot about that. That was, the last couple of years, they've done 2 of the animated movies. But this show at least gets right it gets a lot of things right, but it gets correct the idea that Wednesday is probably the most interesting character of the family. It's something that the second Addams Family movie figured out when they took her to camp. The second animated movie was horrible, but they made it a Wednesday specific story. So I think people are finally getting on to this is the most interesting character. I think you can do the most with her. I think the other characters, at least from what we've seen in the different iterations, are fairly one note, and I feel like kind of see that again too. Jenna Ortega, I mentioned her name in the Golden Globe nominations, but she plays Wednesday, the 16-year-old with, in this particular iteration, psychic powers. And she is sent to Nevermore Academy because she's already been kicked out of so many other schools over the years. And we see Gwendolyn Christie as the principal, Ricky Lindholm as Wednesday's therapist, and then her parents, played by Catherine Zeta-Jones as Morticia and Louis Guzman as Gomez. They are not in too many episodes. In fact, they're listed as guests. I've only seen 2, and they were in both of those, but maybe that's all they're in. I don't know. And then the brother Pugsley, also, in a guest role, Isaac Ordonez. Not familiar with him. He doesn't really talk too much. Fred Armisen plays Uncle Fester as well. So, look, there's some big names attached to this. I can take or leave Louis Guzman as Gomez. I know people were sort of up in arms when they announced him, saying, oh, Gomez is Raul Julia, he's so handsome and whatever. In the 60s version, I wouldn't call him classically handsome, but he wasn't sort of, ugly. But look, if you go back to the original comic books, or the comic strips, I guess, he looks actually a lot like Louis Guzman. So I thought it was great casting. The performance, though, leaves me a little bit cold, to be honest, but he's not in it that much, so it's okay. I thought Catherine Zeta-Jones was a great Morticia, good casting choice, and she plays it off very well. But look, the meat and potatoes here is Jenna Ortega. She is incredible as Wednesday. She does a really, really good job. And look, it's not the same as the show, in the respect that it's a through line here with the mystery. And it's obviously focused more on one character. But, the 60s show was in that vein of the silly sitcom. It was out at the same time as, of course, The Munsters, but also things like My Favorite Martian and My Living Doll, which is like this robot, hot robot woman that was living with this guy, and I guess they were having sex. I don't know. It was the 60s, so probably not. But, all of these types of, like, Gilligan's Island, like these wacky shows. This, because of the way streaming is these days, and because of the way really dramas are these days on television, it takes it in a much more dark direction. There's definitely humor here, but it's not of the, slapstick type of kind that we saw in the old show, or really in the movies. In the 90s movies, I feel like there was a lot of that slapstick kind of thing too. Here, we just don't see that, which, I think may turn people off. For me, it worked because of what the story is and what this girl, Jenna Ortega, does. She is a great actress. I don't recognize her, but I know she was in some show that I didn't watch, and I'll tell you what that is in just a second. Oh, well, I did watch Jane the Virgin. I guess she was a kid actress on Jane the Virgin. But she was on You, the Netflix show You, which is very popular, but I've never seen it. So I didn't recognize her from that. Now that I'm thinking about it, I guess I saw her as a kid in Jane the Virgin, but she was so little then. She's 20 now, playing 16. So I guess on Jane the Virgin, she was probably 8, maybe. So, that was a lifetime ago for her. But, look, I can see why this hit with so many people. It came out on a holiday weekend, so everybody was, watching it. And then, because of that, they were buzzing about it and talking about it. And this is the kind of show Netflix needs to do more often because, with the Disney model where they release an episode every week, oh, well, now we're talking about WandaVision for 6 straight weeks, or we're talking about Loki for 6 straight weeks. Here, with Netflix, mostly, you watch it, and the next week, like, you're on to the next Netflix show. So this is the rare standout that people are talking about for weeks and weeks. Squid Game had it. Stranger Things, of course, has it. I think this is a really good show. It's not great, only because of, a couple of the things I mentioned. I would have liked it to be maybe a little more episodic. Louis Guzman, not my favorite, but definitely, one of the great shows of the year. I think this will be remembered. And we didn't talk about this in news because we didn't do any renewals and cancellations, but as of the other day, it's already been renewed for season 2. No shocker there. Biggest show of all time on Netflix for English language. I give Wednesday an A-. All right, moving next to FX on Hulu for Fleishman Is In Trouble. In fact, our next two shows are going to be FX on Hulu. And this is starring a whole, cast of really A-list stars. Well, at least B-list, if nothing else. I guess these aren't maybe A-listers, but Jesse Eisenberg, Lizzie Kaplan, Claire Danes, and Adam Brody. So, all right, yes, I misspoke with A-list, but these are all, names and faces certainly. And it's mostly, this drama, relationship drama, I guess you would call it, with Jesse Eisenberg as Dr. Toby Fleischman, Lizzie Kaplan as one of his best friends, and Claire Danes as the ex-wife Rachel, and then Adam Brody, one of Toby's best friends. And basically, there's a lot of dating apps out there now. Fleischman is discovering them and making the most of his time as a newly single man. And meanwhile, his ex-wife kind of disappears, leaving him with their kids, and, we don't know what happened to her and all of that. I think this is a show that we've seen a lot in sort of movie form lately, because we've seen a lot of, Marriage Story, and it was a TV show, not a movie, but it was with Oscar Isaac and I think maybe Jessica Chastain, and it was it called like The Marriage or something? I forget, but it was one of those shows where it was it was so painful to get through, because if you've lived it, you don't necessarily want to relive it through these other characters. And if you've never lived it, you're thankful. So, you want to move on. This isn't quite as somber as that. I think it tries to inject a little bit of humor and just more sort of happiness into a little bit of these, characters. But one problem I have with it is the constant narration, and they switch up the narrators, whether it's Lizzie Kaplan or Claire Danes, they'll switch up. So it's not the same narration all the time, but it's way overutilized in this. We hear it constantly, switching scenes in the middle of scenes. And there is something to be said for just show us what is going on, and we'll infer, what's going on in their minds or whatever. You can have a little bit of that sort of background with the narration, but every minute or two there's a new narration popping up. It was overkill on that. And then just the themes. I didn't get any really joy from watching this, it's the performances are very good. I think with these names, we can expect that. Hopefully we see more of Claire Danes as it continues. I don't think I'll really continue with the show per se, but for the first two, we barely saw Claire Danes. We heard her in the narration, but, as her character sort of did disappear, by the end of that first episode, where did she go? Are we going to see more of her? I would like that, because of all these actors, she is my favorite of them. And she's part of the poster, it's the three of them, her, Lizzie Kaplan, and Eisenberg. But yeah, Jesse Eisenberg is good. I think he's found sort of a nice niche in his older years, because he was sort of like the smart ass, kid in, Adventureland and The Social Network and stuff like that, playing, Zuckerberg in that one. And, I think he struggled a little bit to find roles to suit him in the last 10 years or so. I didn't really think he was a very good Riddler in that one DC movie. I know they're making a third Zombieland and a third Now You See Me. I think, those are kind of good avenues for him. Those have been sort of good vehicles. But this character I think works very well for him. The neurotic, New Yorker kind of thing. Not knowing what to do in his middle age almost. He's not quite middle age yet, but I think he's certainly younger than me, right? I'm 45. Maybe he is middle age. Maybe he's like 35 or 40. I don't know. But anyway, this is a tough one to watch. There's just no joy here, and the overuse of the narration really sort of dims any sort of character development, because you're always being told what the character is or what they're thinking or whatever. But the acting is great. I have to give it that. So I'll leave Fleishman Is In Trouble with a C+. All right, next is, again, on FX on Hulu, Welcome to Chippendales. This is a drama, a crime drama, although you wouldn't know it really from the first episode until those last few seconds. It's another one of those where it's like, it gives you a full episode before you get to any sort of what's this really about. And so we have that here. The big draw for me on this is Kumail Nanjiani. I mentioned Murray Bartlett earlier. He got a nomination for this, I think, for the Critics' Choice. Maybe it was Golden Globes. They all sort of blended together, didn't they? But the premise here is about the creation of the club Chippendales, and then its devastating collapse and a murder mystery involved as well, with the owner and founder, Soman Steve Banjiri, from successful businessman to murder accessory, and that's played by Kumail Nanjiani. Nick DiNoia is played by Murray Bartlett, who is sort of the choreographer that Steve hires on as help to really shape up the routines and stuff. Juliette Lewis and Annalee Ashford have some supporting roles as well. And Dan Stevens, who we've seen in many things over the years, he plays Paul Snyder, who is sort of Steve's original business partner for Chippendales. So unlike Fleishman Is In Trouble, this one handles some heavy topics, though not quite yet, I guess, in the first 2 episodes. Right now we're sort of building up the club, but it's a lot of fun so far, right? We're in the zone, we're in the club. Oh, this is great. A lot of fun going on. And then, of course, we'll get to, at the end of the first episode, we sort of see what's happening, and that lingers a little bit in the second episode, but still not quite tackling it. And then I think as we move into the third and fourth episodes, then we're really going to focus on sort of the more of the downfall of Chippendales, as it is sort of a 10-year story, and so far we've only hit about 4 years of that. But Kumail Nanjiani, I think, is really a fantastic and maybe underrated performer. He was great in the movie The Big Sick, which was sort of his life, and he got an Oscar nomination for co-writing the script with his wife. But he, of course, is probably best known for Silicon Valley, which unfortunately I never saw. But I just, he's a funny stand-up. He's great on talk shows. He just seems like a great guy, and I love seeing him in this role because it is something a little bit darker for him. Not at first, but as we move on, and the sort of the greed that comes with it. Reminds me a little bit of a better made version of that movie 54, which was about Studio 54 and Mike Myers playing the lead of that. It was a pretty bad movie. It's kind of corny, from, I want to say 98 maybe, or 99, that came out. But it reminds me a little bit of that in the terms of like, okay, we're going to do the rise and fall of this club and this owner who's maybe got some questionable morals and that kind of thing. But it's fun to watch so far. I definitely got more laughs from this than Fleishman Is In Trouble, which I think is meant as more of a little bit of a comedic drama. But this one, I enjoyed watching. Great performances all around. I want them to get to the meat and potatoes of the story quicker, I will admit that. But at the same time, we are going chronologically. They're not, starting it off with a murder and then, oh, how did we get here? So if you're doing it chronologically, it kind of makes sense and is less of a sort of gotcha, storytelling device with that. So overall, I enjoyed this. I leave Welcome to Chippendales with an A-. All right, next we will go to Pitch Perfect, Bumper in Berlin. This is a spin-off of the popular Pitch Perfect franchise about one of the guys. It's, Pitch Perfect, of course, is known for the women singing in the a cappella group. But no, they took Bumper, played by Adam Devine, and put him in his own TV show. And reuniting him with Sarah Hyland from Modern Family. They dated on that show for several seasons. And maybe in real life, too. I don't know. But she plays the assistant to the Flula Borg character that we also saw in Pitch Perfect, I think, 3 or maybe 2. He wasn't in the first one for sure, but I think maybe he was in 3 as a former member of Das Sound Machine. And Sarah Hyland plays his assistant. Jamila Jamil is here as well as one of his former girlfriends. So Bumper has sort of hit, no pun intended, but a bump in the road with his own a cappella groups and career in the States. So he gets a call from the Flula Borg character and says, oh, you've made it big on TikTok with one of your performances, over here in Germany, you should come over and see. But that was a lie. He just, I don't know, through some stupid circumstances, he was like lonely or whatever and wanted to get him over. Not a lot of the plot makes sense, but all right, here we are. So my problem with this is that he was just never that great of a character in Pitch Perfect. He dated the Fat Amy character, which was Rebel Wilson. But, like I said, Pitch Perfect has always been about the women vocal teams. The men are just, the first one, maybe a little more of the men played in, Adam Devine. You had Ben Platt in that first one. But by the second and third one, we were adding Haley Steinfeld and like all these other women to the core. And I don't even, was Adam Devine even in the third one? I don't remember. The third one is not very good, but in any event, so they took this character that no one really cared about what his story was, and they put him in his own show. I will admit, it's better than I thought it was going to be, because when I heard that concept, I was like, oh, who cares about this? But I will admit, I do like seeing him and Sarah Hyland back together, because Modern Family sort of started to fall apart after 8 or 9 seasons. I think it ran 11 seasons. But so their sort of interactions towards the end, or like in not great seasons. So it is nice to see them sort of back together, playing off each other. I think they're, if they have not dated in real life, they're certainly good friends in real life, and that sort of shines through on the screen. So I like that. The Flula character, a lot of people have tried to make Flula happen in the U.S. I know Conan, and I love Conan, but he was, big proponent of him. And obviously with the Pitch Perfect movies, and he's done a couple of other things on different comedy shows and stuff. I don't get it. I don't think that Americans and Germans tend to have the same sense of humor. So I don't quite appreciate, I guess, his whole shtick. So that did not work for me here. And yeah, the whole premise, is like, all right, did we need more of this character though? I will admit, I guess a couple of the songs are kind of catchy, like in the Pitch Perfect movies. We do the acapella stuff. It's fine. I'm just, who asked for this? Did we need this? It's better than I thought it was going to be. I will say that. I'm going to leave Bumper in Berlin with a C+. That's over on Peacock. All right, sticking with Peacock, we have a show called Leopard Skin, and this stars Carla Gugino, another, sort of name and face you may know, and this has to do with this criminal gang who botched up a jewelry heist and is forced to hide out on this beachside estate, which is owned by Carla Gugino and her family. And she sort of lives there in seclusion, no phones, no any of that. And secrets get revealed and things start happening, and you can imagine. So this is an interesting one, because it reminds me a little bit of last week's Tulsa King with Sylvester Stallone, because it's not really written very well, and they're trying to shove in some comedy here where it doesn't necessarily belong. But it is mildly intriguing. The stuff with the heist, I can sort of get behind, and where that's going and what we're doing with that. So I think that's mildly interesting. But I will say some of the dialogue is real corny. I didn't find that necessarily with Tulsa King, but here it is a little corny, and they're trying to tell us jokes and stuff that maybe are not working out. But one of my biggest issues with it is the out of sequence storytelling that might work for a 2.5-hour Tarantino movie. It works for even like a 48, 50-minute show. It works a little better. These episodes are like 22, 23 minutes, and works, we're supposed to follow along with like 3 or 4 different timelines. And it was way too confusing for me. So I found the plot to be intriguing enough. And Carla Gugino, I always sort of liked her. So she's fine. But some of the lines are so corny, or they're just sort of poorly read, poorly acted by some of the supporting characters. And I'm not sure who's likable either. Maybe the Gugino character. I guess so far she is. But, the people in the heist, they kind of go back and forth, actually, because they're sort of so stupid that you can't help but feel bad for them that they're in this situation, because, I know they put themselves there, but they're so inept. But then that leads into the sort of the more comedic or soapy zone. I thought, at the first few minutes, I thought, oh, okay, this is maybe going to be like a soap opera kind of thing. But it never quite fully goes in that direction. So it's an interesting watch, but I don't think it's a particularly good show. So I'm going to leave Leopard Skin with a C. And then finally, we've got Echo 3. This is on Apple TV Plus, and this is an action thriller. And it was created by two-time Academy Award winner Mark Bowl. What did he win an Academy Award for? Let's see. He did In the Valley of Allah. Okay. Oh, he wrote and produced Zero Dark 30. Well, there you go. I love that movie. All right. Well, that actually makes sense because this I was thinking there was a lot of sort of military type stuff in this. So Zero Dark 30 makes sense. Luke Evans. Again, we see Luke Evans. He plays a black ops thriller. Or it is a black ops thriller, but he plays a black ops operative, I guess you would call that, or whatever. And basically, this gal Amber is a American scientist researching the benefits of psychedelics to treat some addiction, where she is kidnapped in Colombia by militants, and most of the series is trying to find her, figure out what happened to her. And her brother is played by Luke Evans, and then Michael Huseman is here as well as the sergeant, and they're looking for what's going on. Bradley Whitford is here too. You can't have a show without Bradley Whitford anymore, but he plays the husband in this. But yeah, so there's the Delta Force coming in, and it's a lot of espionage kind of stuff, and let's find this woman and whatever. But the first episode is incredibly slow. In fact, I was thinking, like, wow, what a rare miss for Apple Plus. Usually their shows are pretty good with, getting us the good stuff quickly. We don't have to sort of wade through some things. There's been a few, look, Apple TV's cranking out so much these days that the quality has definitely dipped in some of them. I think Slow Horses is Apple TV Plus, and I didn't particularly care for that, but I know people love it. So maybe I'm in the wrong there. But this one, I'm glad I watched the second episode because that really sort of picked up the pace and got me invested in specifically the woman kidnapped, because we see her sort of interacting with her captors a bit and seeing sort of how that dynamic might go. And again, they're a bit inept, so not in a humorous way necessarily, but just in a dudes, what are you doing here, kind of thing. But yeah, episode 1, it really took me a little bit to get fully invested, but then by episode 2, it really was firing on all cylinders, and I thought, okay, now this I can get behind. We're really tackling the issues here, getting into the nitty-gritty of what the story is going to be. I just, you could have put the first 2 episodes together in one, 50-minute presentation. I think that probably would have served it better. But so I give Echo 3 a B-. All right, so that will do it for this week. Next week, we'll be back with more TV news and reviews. And at some point, I think in the next week or two, I guess, because Christmas is coming here, I will do sort of the holiday special edition of TV news and reviews. We did that last year with like the Zoe's Christmas and the Annie Live that they did. So I know the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special is going to be on that list, and maybe some of the other things. I don't know if there's a live Broadway performance this season like there usually is, but I'll find at least 3 or 4 things in that vein to kind of review for you. Maybe like a TV Christmas movie or something like that, like Zoe's Extraordinary Christmas, but we'll get there, and we'll do sort of a special with that. So thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on Dan Reviews It. Bye.